सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिधि नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गोरक्षे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिय। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So we have looked from the first 6 chapters. Other than chapter 2, I looked at every chapter 1, 3, 4, 5 and 6 based on Sripad Yamunacharya and Ramanacharya's commentary. So today what we are doing is we are looking at some parts of chapter 2 since that wasn't done. So I'll start with this invocation verse, which is by Sripad Yamunacharya from the Girtartha Sangraha, where he's summarizing chapter 2. Okay, so we'll start with this, and then we will go into one part of this particular chapter today. Okay, so this is again a very beautiful summary. Yes, you can appreciate the Sanskrit verse here. It's a beautiful summary of chapter 2. He's saying here, this is by Yamunacharya. So he says, Nityatma Sangha Karme Ha Gochara Sankhya Yoga Dihi Dvitiye Stitadhi Laksha Prokta Tan Moha Shante. So he's talking about what is there in the second chapter. Okay. So we will look at the translation, and then we will just try to understand whatever we have studied from second chapter till now. We will be able to easily connect and understand and appreciate this point. So Yamunacharya says here, the knowledge of the Atman and of Karma Yoga, which has its object, the eternal Atman and the performance of karma without attachments, and has the state of Sthita Prajna as the goal, is preached in the second Adhyaya to remove the confusion that Arjuna has. Okay, so it's again a very, very wonderful summary of the second chapter. So what is he saying? See, the first thing to be focused in this verse is Sankhya Yoha Dihi. Dihi means knowledge. So like Dhimahi or Dihi, it refers to the intellect. Okay, so the knowledge, and what is the knowledge? Primarily in the second chapter, two things, Sankhya and Yoga. Okay, we all know like 2.39 Bhagavad Gita, right? Where Krishna is saying, Yesha te bhita Sankhya Buddhi Yoge Tumam Shrunu. Where Krishna is making it clear that the first part of the second chapter was about Sankhya Yoga, and now onwards he is going to talk about Buddhi Yoga. Okay, so basically there is Sankhya and there is Yoga. These are the two main parts of the knowledge of the second chapter. So that is what Yamunacharya is referring to, Sankhya Yoga Dihi. Now, Sankhya here means the knowledge of Atma, because Sankhya means the system of counting, but the whole purpose here of counting is to understand the Atma. So that is Sankhya. And Yoga is Karma Yoga. Okay, so that is also well understood. So Yoga is Karma Yoga, and Sankhya is about Atma. So these are the two main subjects of the second chapter. Gochara. Now, what is the object of it? Now, why is this being discussed? Okay, so why is Sankhya, why is the knowledge of Atma and of Karma Yoga being discussed? So he's saying here it has two purposes. One is Nityatma. Now, again, Atma is coming. You may wonder why it is coming. So, but the point here is that these topics are being discussed in order to understand that the Atma is eternal. Because this was the first thing that Krishna starts teaching in the second chapter. Nityatma means the Atma is eternal. Okay, and Asanga Karmeha, and that karma should be done without attachment. So this is that famous verse 2.47. Karmanyavadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Right. So there are Yeah, 1 second. I just want to ensure that everyone is muted so that there won't be any disturbance. Yeah, thank you. I'll unmute later whenever questions come. Okay. So the 2 points in the second chapter are about Atma and Karma Yoga, and the purpose is to understand Atma is Nitya and Karma has to be done without attachments. Uh, like I told you, right? 2.47 Bhagavad Gita, Karma Nivadikarasya, and all that part. And Sthitidhi Laksha. And what is the goal of this Karma Yoga, at least in the second chapter? The goal of Karma Yoga is Sthita Prajna, okay, to come to this level of Sthita Prajna. This is the goal of the second chapter. Prokta, this has been preached. In the second Adhyaya, Tan Moha Shantaye, to remove the confusion that Arjuna has. So again, if all of us know the second chapter, which we have studied so much, we are able to appreciate what Yamunacharya is saying here, that we are learning about Sankhya and Yoga to understand that the Atma is eternal, and also to understand that Karma Yoga must be done without attachment, Nishkama Karma Yoga. And the goal of all this is to reach the state of Sthita Prajna. Okay, and this is all preached in the second chapter to remove the confusion that Arjuna has. So this is how beautifully Yamunacharya is summarizing the second chapter. So what I will be doing today is I'm going to take only one theme, that is Sthita Prajna, and discuss that. Because the Sthita Prajna theme, which is there, which actually comes in this last part of the second chapter, is a theme which is, which is seen in some way to be like a Jnana Yoga part. So this is the only part which is like kind of elaborating Jnana, and we will see why it is like that. Because that is how Krishna starts presenting the Gita, correct? That one has to do Karma Yoga and then attain this Jnana and then do Yoga. The Yoga now means the sixth chapter, Dhyana Yoga. And in this way, purify the self or liberate the self or come to Atma Sakshatkar, come to the understanding of, self-realization. So this is how Krishna presents the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Correct? This is how he's presenting it. So before we jump into this part of Sthita Prajna, I wish to say here that, among all the acharyas, 3 acharyas in India are considered as very important, or Matatraya Acharya they are called. That is Sripad Shankaracharya, Sripad Madhvacharya, and Sripad Ramanujacharya. These 3 are called as Matatraya Acharya. So this is a term which you will come across even in CC or some other places. This term comes, Matatraya Acharya. That means there were 3 different matas, right? Mata means opinion. One is about Advaita Shankaracharya, then Dvaita Madhvacharya, and Ramacharya spoke about Vishishta Advaita. Okay, so these 3 matas. So this is called Matatraya. And interestingly, all of them have, so the beauty of Bhagavad Gita in one sense is all of them have commented on Gita as well as the Vedanta Sutra. So these are the 3 prasthana: Shruti Prasthana, Smriti Prasthana, and Upanishadik Prasthana. Prasthana means proof, or the way you prove things. So Shruti, from the Shruti Prasthana is the Vedanta Sutra. The Smriti Prasthana is the Bhagavad Gita. And then there is Upanishadic Prasthana also. That means you have to give evidence from the Upanishad also. Correct? So all these 3 acharyas have explained things from the Bhagavad Gita, from Vedanta Sutra, and also from the Upanishads in order to establish their opinion, their mata. Right? So this is how it has been. And one devotee was once very nicely explaining that even though we say Shankaracharya's philosophy is Mayavada, it is not actually that every line they say is Mayavada. It's not something like that. In fact, one very famous scholar says that even Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya, when they quote many things in their Gita commentary or other commentary, they refer to Shankaracharya also, because there are many things that he said which are acceptable, right? Which are part of the general understanding. So that is all accepted. So there is only just that one part of this goal being Brahman and Brahma Jyoti, merging in Brahma Jyoti, the Advaita part of it, etc., which the Vaishnavas don't take. Otherwise, so many things are very, very common. And one such commonality is this Sthita Prajna. This part of Sthita Prajna is something because it is about the state of a Jnana Yogi. This is pretty much accepted by all in a very similar fashion. Okay, so that is the section that we will spend some time discussing today, right? So, yeah, one second. So what I will be doing now is I will just we'll just go to the verses of the Sthita Prajna and we will start talking about it. So this particular section comes in the last part of the second chapter. Okay, this comes in the last part of the second chapter because Krishna initially talks about Sankhya Yoga till 38, then he speaks about Karma Yoga till about 52 or something, and then he mentions that the goal of all this is to become a Sthita Prajna. And then Arjuna is asking some questions about what is the Sthita Prajna and how we can understand who is Sthita Prajna. And this is where Krishna's answer commences. So as usual, we are looking today at Sripad Ramanujacharya's commentary. And we are looking at only those aspects which are kind of, I would say, slightly different than what most of us have already learned from Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. So I'm just focusing on the differential aspect. So we'll start with text number 55. Which is the description of Sthita Prajna. So he says here, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atman yevatmana tushtaha Sthita Prajnastadochate. Okay, so look at the translation here. Sri Krishna replies, Hey Arjuna, when one's mind, which is focused purely on the Jivatma, when one rejoices, feels satisfied by experiencing the blissful Jivatma alone, and fully renounces all other desires except Atma and Atma Sakshatkar, which were present earlier in the mind, at that time he is referred to as a Sthita Prajna. So very beautiful translation Ramanujacharya is given here. So he says that when one's mind, so I'm repeating again, when one's mind is focused purely on the Jivatma. Now please try to understand, the verses here use Atma as Jivatma because this is speaking about the Jnani. And the understanding here is that the Jnani who is there, his goal is to understand the Jivatma. That means that is self-realization, right, for the Jnani. So that is why this whole section is spoken like that. It is spoken from the Jnani's perspective because that's what Krishna is said to be addressing here. Though interestingly, all these verses will apply even to a Bhakta. Okay, so that part is, we will be talking about that. Right. So here, once again, I'll repeat the translation. Krishna is saying, Hey Arjuna, when using one's mind, which is focusing purely on the Jivatma, when one rejoices, feels satisfied by experiencing the blissful Jivatma alone, and fully renounces all other desires which were present earlier in the mind, at that time he is referred to as Sthita Prajna. So this is how he is defining Sthita Prajna. So Ramanujacharya has given a very nice commentary to these set of verses. He says that these four verses which are there, 55, 56, 57, 58, these four verses speak about different types of Jnana Yogi. So he says that 55 speaks about the topmost Jnana Yogi, 56 about one level less, 57 about one more level less of Jnana Yogi, and 58 about the last level of Jnana Yogi. So 4 levels of Jnana Yogi are being spoken in this part. Okay. And this is the first level, which is the topmost, this 55. And this level, Ramanujacharya, he calls it as Vashikara Samnya. Vashikara Samnya, this is also a term used in Patanjali Yoga Sutra for this Jnana Yogi who is perfect, topmost Jnana Yogi. And what is the characteristic of this topmost Jnana Yogi? As Krishna is saying here, that this person takes pleasure only in Atma. Okay, so here Atma, so one Atma is referring to the mind and the other one is referring to the Atma, that means the Jivatma itself, right? So that is how the translation is. Okay, that means with one's mind, one is focusing only on the Jivatma. Okay, so this is, so Sarvan, so such a person never takes pleasure in anything in the world. So that is what Eva, this word Eva means only, that means he is only fixed in the Jivatma. Okay, so Ramanujacharya and Sarvan Kaman, that means he has given up all desires except any spiritual desire, okay? Except Atma and Atma. Everything else he has given up. So Ramanujacharya gives an example for this verse. He says the devotee who was at the level of this verse is our Prahlad Maharaj. So he says Prahlad Maharaj was at the level of this verse. Now somebody may say, how come Prahlad Maharaj's example can be given? Because Prahlad Maharaj is a devotee and this verse is talking about a jnani. So he says, no problem. Even though this verse is talking about a jnani, we will give example of a devotee because even a devotee can be in this stage, right? A devotee is also a jnani, as in he is, all this is included in a devotee. So in that sense, a bhakta can exemplify these stages of achievement. Okay, so he gives the example of Prahlad, who was perfectly in this stage. Now, how can we understand Prahlad was in this stage? The point is, if you read the Bhagavatam, we can understand that Prahlad was not affected by anything material. Okay, and that means it is said that Prahlad was thinking of Krishna so much that even if the snakes are, he's put into a pit of snakes, he's not even understanding that I am in a pit of snakes right now. Are you getting it? So if you see Prahlada's Chetana in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, that Prahlad is not aware of all the tortures that Hiranyakashipu is doing to him. Only when we read the story, we feel that, oh my God, how come this fellow's father put him through such a torture? But Prahlad himself was completely unaware. It's not even that, he was, for example, fallen in a pit of snakes and he's desperately praying to Krishna that, please save me. And no, he's just spontaneously focused on Lord Narayana or Vishnu or Krishna or whatever in his mind, correct? His mind was completely absorbed in Krishna without any botheration for anything material. So it's a very, very powerful example of this verse, correct? Sarvan Kaman, he had no other Kama only, Prahlad. At least in the Bhagavatam, when you see the character of Prahlad, you will see it like that, right? Absolutely nothing. And only focused, now of course, he was not focused on the Jivatma, he was focused on the Paramatma. But that's fine. Okay? So the point is, this verse refers to a perfect jnani, but it can refer even to a perfect devotee, like Prahlad. So we are taking Prahlad as example. But certainly there would be jnanis also who would have exemplified these kind of stages of achievement. Though as devotees, we may not know about them or we may not give their example so much, but that is what actually Krishna is referring to in this verse. Okay, so we need to understand this. Krishna is talking about the topmost jnani in this verse. Okay, so, and as I began by saying that these are verses which are accepted by everybody the way it is, right? Whether you're a Vaishnava or whether you're Advaitavadi, the verse is very clear. The verse is as clear as the sun. So there is, if you see the Sanskrit itself, it is very, very clear what is being said. Yeah, there is no confusion. But somebody may say, is it possible for everybody to be such a big jnani like Prahlad? Because Prahlad, my God, what a stage this is. Correct? Nothing is aware, is not aware of anything, only of Krishna is thinking. Of course, in this case, the jnani is thinking only of the Jivatma. Is it possible to have such a level of achievement? Okay, so that is why, see, Krishna also, that's why, we always say the Bhagavad Gita is a book of various levels. Krishna is not just giving the topmost level and saying that either you come there or you are nowhere. Okay, so Krishna gives other levels also. So Ramanujacharya says that in the next verse, in the 56th verse, Krishna is speaking of the second level of Jnana Yoga. Okay, so let's see that verse. Dukkhe shamat vignamana sukeshu vigata spraha vitaraga bhayakrota sthita dhir muniruchyate. Okay, now I'll read this verse, the translation, which has been given here. One whose mind is undisturbed, anudvigna manaha, undisturbed, when reasons for sorrow strike, dukkheshu. He who does not crave or have thirst to enjoy the pleasures, when reasons for pleasure come. Okay. He who is free from attachment, desire for things to be attained, fear caused by perception of impending sorrowful event, and anger aimed at an entity which is responsible for the happening of the sorrowful event, he who has his mind attached only on the Jivatma is called as Sthita Prajna. So this is also definition of Sthita Prajna. Okay, but Ramanujacharya beautifully explains here that this is the second level of Jnana Yogi. And he has given a term for this. He calls it Ekendriya Samya. Ekendriya means mind. Okay, mind is that ekendriya, that main sense, and that has been controlled. Now we have to understand why we are calling it second stage. So please try to appreciate that in the previous stage, which we read, the 55th verse, which we gave example of Prahlad Maharaj, there that person was not even conscious of material things, as I said, right? Prahlad is not even conscious. He's put into a pit of snakes. He's put into fire. He's not even conscious of it. We are conscious when we read the story. He is not. But in this verse, we are talking about someone who understands that Sukha Dukkha has come. Okay, so that is what is being said. He understands. So in this verse, this yogi who is there, Jnana Yogi, he knows that currently Dukkha is coming in my life. Some sickness has come, my child is not well, my some financial problem in the house. He understands that Dukkha is coming. It's not that he's not. So please remember, in the previous verse, like Prahlad, if you are, then you will not even understand that Dukkha has come. But in this place, he has understood that Dukkha is coming, but he's not affected by it. That's the point. Okay, so I hope you can appreciate that this is one level less than the previous stage, where you are not even aware that Dukkha or Sukha is coming, but now you are aware, but then it's not affecting you. So now if you see the verse again, you'll be able to appreciate, right? One whose mind is undisturbed, anudvigna, his mind is not affected. Okay, Dukkheshu, that means what? Dukkha is coming. He's understanding that Dukkha is coming. Okay, similarly, Sukha is also coming. He's understanding Sukha Rabi. Lot of money is coming, lot of food is coming, good health is there, everything is nice. He understands that. But mind is not disturbed. Anudvigna manana. He is not affected by it. And the other part is, right? Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha. Vita means to give up. Raga Bhaya Krodha. Very nice definition he is giving. Raga means he says is desiring something for the future is called as raga. Bhaya means futuristic dukkha. So raga is defined as futuristic sukha. Bhaya is defined as futuristic dukkha. And krodha is when something undesirable happens to us and we are angry towards that person. Then that is called as krodha. Okay, so like that. So basically, I mean, if you go into the Sanskrit, krodha can never be to yourself. I mean, you cannot say that I have krodha on myself. So for that, there is another term in Sanskrit called nirvedam. That means when you are angry with yourself for your own foolishness, it is not technically anger. It is called nirvedam. And you cannot be angry on an inanimate object like a stone or a thorn. Okay, suppose a stone strikes you or something, right? Or a thorn goes in your feet, then it's not called krodha. So krodha is a term used in Sanskrit to specifically address some other person who is giving you trouble and you wish something bad for that person or something like that. Right? So in this verse, if you see, so this is Ekendriya Samnya, correct? Previously we called it Vashikara Samnya, now this is Ekendriya Samnya. Now you see clearly we have come one level down. Now if you look at the next verse, you will be able to appreciate that Krishna is understanding that we have to give some more levels of Jnana Yoga. So now Krishna is going to the 57th verse, okay, where he is giving the third level of Jnana Yogi. Please appreciate this verse. Yes sarvatra nabhisneha tattat prapya shubhashubham nabhinandati nadveshti tasya prajna pratishtita. I'll read the translation and discuss. The one who is unattached, indifferent to all things which are likable, and after attaining all those good and bad things, neither rejoices much on attaining the good, nor feels too disappointed, sorrowful on attaining the bad. Such a person's intellect is firm, and he is also called as Sthita Prajna. Okay, so now Krishna is giving the third level of Sthita Prajna, which is called as Vyatireka Samnya. This is the third level of Sthita. This is also Jnana Yogi, but third level Jnana Yogi. And what is his characteristic? His characteristic means he not only understands that Sukha Dukkha has come, but he doesn't rejoice too much. Okay, so the main part in this verse is Nabhinandati. Nabhinandati means bahut jyada wo kutta nahi hai. That means not that happiness comes, then he perceives happiness also. Now please try to understand in the previous verse, that person happiness doesn't affect him at all. Distress doesn't affect him. But now this person, distress is going to affect him. Something bad happens in life, some disease happens, some hospitalization happens, some money loss happens, anything happens. He does feel disappointed, but not too disappointed. Okay, that is so the focus in this verse is Nabhinandati Nadveshti. So that abhi matlab too much. too much happiness, too much distress is not undergoing. Okay, so that is why it is said that yogi means to not be too affected by anything that happens. Okay, we will get affected, but still it is at a moderate level. Okay, so this is third level. Okay, so you are able to appreciate now. We are coming slowly down, okay, from the previous two levels. Okay, Nabhinandati Nadveshti Tasya Prajna Pratishtita. Such a person is also Prajna Pratishtita. He is also there. Because too much is not getting affected. Okay, so like that. Somebody may say, even this is too much. What do you mean by too much? I'm not affected. I'm going to be affected a lot. So Krishna has one more level, which is called as Yatamana Samnya. And that is the fourth level of Jnana Yogi. Okay. Yatamana Samnya. Yatamana Samnya. So let's read the verse. This is text number 58. Yada samharate chayam kurmo gani va sarvashaha indriyan indriyartebhyas tasya prajna pratishtita. Look at what Krishna is saying. When this Atmajnani withdraws or restrains the senses which are attempting to experience the sense objects from the sense objects like sound, touch, color, taste, and smell, fully in all aspects, just like a tortoise withdraws all its limbs when it encounters danger, such a person's intellect is firm, and he is also called as Sthita Prajna. So now Krishna is talking about the fourth level of Jnana Yoga. And what is this characteristic of the fourth level of Jnana Yogi? This fourth level of Jnana Yogi, Krishna is saying he is like the tortoise. That means he pulls his senses from sense object. Okay, that means when there is something that is attracting him too much, he restrains. मतलब वो थोड़ा मेहनत करता है to withdraw his senses, correct? He pulls. So he says he pulls all, not just one sense, since that is useless. Okay, so Ramanujacharya says if you pull only one sense and you keep the other four senses engaged, then that is useless. So that is why Krishna uses this word sarvashaha. Sarvashaha matlab सभी सेंस को वश में रखता है tortoise जैसे. Just like a tortoise will pull all its limbs and head inside. It has four legs and one head, right? It is not that it will say, let me keep my head outside and only my legs I will pull in. No, it doesn't do that. Everything, all five he pulls inside. So similarly here, this Jnani who is there, he will pull all the senses, sarvashaha. And in this way, somebody is able to do this much also, he is also called as a Jnana Yogi. I mean, we can really appreciate, this greatness of Krishna, how he has given so many levels, right, for everybody. He's not, Krishna is such a amazing personality. He is not saying that, hey, look, I'm going to accept you only if, or I'm going to give just one definition of success. He has given multiple definitions of success. And this is something very, very special about the Bhagavad Gita. All right, you will see this everywhere. So as we saw in these four verses that we saw from 55 to 58, Krishna has spoken about four levels of Jnana Yogi. First, he's spoken about the topmost Jnana Yogi. We'll just revise for the benefit of those who joined just now as well. So the first verse, 55th verse, Prajahati Yada Kaman, Krishna is talking about someone, Jnana Yogi, who has completely given up all sense enjoyment, is not even aware of what is happening around him materially. Okay, so you will hear of such yogis time to time. They're not even aware of anything material happening to them. For that, Ramanujacharya gave the example of Prahlad Maharaj. Okay, somebody may say this is too much. So the next level. So that was right. So all these things have their names also. First was Vashikara Samnya. And in 56th verse, Ekendriya Samnya. In Ekendriya Samnya, what did Krishna say? Krishna said, Dukkhe Shanut Vignamana. That means happiness is coming, distress is coming, but still this person is not affected. So that means he understands happiness and distress aya. In the previous stage, even that was not aware. So this is called as Ekendriya Samnya, where the mind is under check. Okay. And the third level, 57th verse, Nabhinandati Nadveshti. This person, not only he understands that happiness and distress is coming, and he's enjoying that happiness also, and he's suffering the distress also, but not too much. Everything is moderate. Okay, so there is enjoyment. He is feeling pleasure, but that pleasure is not out of proportion. It's controlled. It is under check. Okay, similarly, the distress also, he doesn't allow himself to become too distressed and too disappointed. So that is also considered a yogi. And the final stage, Krishna said is, final stage is Yatamana Samnya, where he is like the tortoise. He withdraws all the senses. So this he is doing more prayasa. Okay, so in the previous one, at least, he was more sober. But here, in the final stage of the that means the lowest of the stages, the Jnana Yogi, he has to do more effort to keep the senses under control. Right? Otherwise, he is just carried away. So in this way, 4 levels of Jnana Yogi have been discussed. Okay, so this is the first part of the second chapter. Now, please, first part of the second chapter of this section, Sthita Prajna. Now, please, all of you also try to appreciate that these verses will apply to a devotee as well. Okay, so that's why when we read Prabhupada's purports or something where these verses are spoken in the context of a Vaishnava, that's fine, that's perfectly fine, right? Because they apply that. But fundamentally, they are said to be talking about a Jnana Yogi. So that is how these verses are. Right now, 59 to 61, Krishna is talking how to achieve this Jnana Yogi. Because somebody may say, how to become such a Jnana Yogi, how to achieve such a stage. So Krishna is giving that method also. So let's look at 59. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinaha rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Okay, so we'll see the translation. For a person who has attempted to withdraw the senses from experiencing the sense objects get turned away without being enjoyed, except the desire for experiencing them that remains in the person's mind. Such a person's desire to enjoy the sense objects too ceases to exist after seeing the great blissful nature of the Jivatma. Okay, so it's in one way, it's a very beautiful verse. So in 59 and 60, what Krishna is basically talking is how this jnana is very tough to achieve. Very tough. Okay, so in this verse, 59th verse, he is saying that, see, jnana yoga means to control the senses and to think of Atma. Okay, so because if you have to always be situated in the Atma Tattva, Atma, always meditating on the Atma, etc., then you cannot be drawn away by the senses, right? It's not that the senses are dragging you anywhere, so that doesn't work. Okay, so what Krishna is saying is you will have to do nirahara. Nirahara means usko ahar nahi dena chahiye. That means you cannot give food to the senses to enjoy. That is why the last stage of the Jnana Yogi was compared to a tortoise, because that is minimum expectation from a Jnana Yogi. Correct? That is the minimum expectation, that his senses are under check. Because if that is also not there, then he's not a yogi only. Jnana Yogi he is not, for sure. Okay. So Krishna is saying here you have to do nirahara. So he is saying when you do nirahara, then okay, you may not do the enjoyment externally, but the desire will keep remaining. So the desire, rasavarjam rasopyasya, the desire will go. When will it go? Param drishtva nivartate. So here param drishtva nivartate, actually Ramanujacharya uses it to say that only when he has experienced the blissful nature of the Atma, that means when he is actually situated in Atma, only then his desire also will go. Till then, desire will remain. So please try to understand. Krishna is saying that this is the path of Jnana Yoga. You will not enjoy, but the desire will be there until you have tasted the blissful nature of Atma. Krishna is saying till then it will not go. Okay. So that Atma Swarupa, you need that higher taste. Right. So in the case of Ramanujacharya, we know the story of Dhanurdas, right? He was very much attracted to Hemambal, and finally Sripad Ramanujacharya gives him a very divine darshan of Ranganath. And when he has that, then he is kind of freed from that attraction to Hemambal. So that story, I'm sure all of us know on that. So that is like that Param Drishta, but that is a devotee example. Right? That is for a Vaishnava. Here Krishna is actually talking even for a Jnani, the same thing. He has to experience Param Drishta, only then he will. Now then somebody may say that, okay, so what is the difficulty in controlling the senses? So that Krishna is speaking in the next verse. Okay, so this is continuation of this 60th verse. Yatatokshapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramatini haranti prasabam manaha. Krishna is saying, oh Kaunteya, of a person who is having the knowledge to differentiate between the Jivatma and the body, even when the person is trying hard to attain Atma Sakshatkar, the extremely powerful senses, using the dormant desires towards sense object as the catalyst, forcibly draws out the mind towards the sense object. So he's saying here that the problem is that this person who is trying hard for Atma Sakshatkar, the senses are such that it will force the mind to go towards the senses. Okay, so please try to understand what has happened. In the 59th verse, Krishna is saying that without seeing Atma, you cannot control your desires. That's what he said, right? Param Drishtva Nivartate. I mean, until you have Atman Sakshatkar, you cannot control your desires. And in 60th verse, he is saying, for controlling desires is very difficult for someone who has not seen the Atma. Are you able to appreciate this point? So this is something which is technically called Anyonya Ashraya. Anyonya Ashraya means 59 and 60 are dependent on each other. Okay, so it is just like a Jyotisha. There was one man who wanted to, who had some problem, some mental disease he had. So his parents took his horoscope to a Jyotish to ask, when will this man's mental disease be cured? So the Jyotish said that his madness will be cured only when he gets married. Okay, so the Jyotish says that. But then when this boys' party, they approach some girl for marriage proposal, the girl's party says, let his madness be cured. Then only the marriage can happen. Are you getting it? So this fellow has got stuck. On one hand, he is having some madness, and the Jyotisha says that the only solution for his madness is to get married. But any girl who the family approaches says that we will give our daughter only if he's cured from madness. So they don't want to take a risk. Right? So this is called Anyonya Ashraya. Right? So in one verse, Krishna is saying that as long as one has not seen the Atma, there will be a desire. And then he's saying that, one who has not seen the Atma, controlling senses is very difficult. So basically, it seems that you're stuck. How will you, become free from this attachment to sense object? Correct. So to break this deadlock, Ramanujacharya says, Krishna is speaking the 61st verse. So this is going to break that deadlock. Tani sarvani sanyamya yukta asita matparaha vashehi yasyendriyani tasya prajna pratishtita. Okay. By withdrawing all the senses and employing them towards my divine form, okay, matparaha, may he live focusing his mind on me, he whose senses have come under control, will attain the firm establishment of jnanam about Jivatma. So now Krishna has broken that deadlock by bringing him into the equation. Okay, by saying that if you focus on me, if you meditate on me, then you can get this problem solved. So somebody may say, Arey, we are talking about Jnana Yoga. Krishna kahan aa gaye yahan par? So Ramanujacharya says, see, this whole section is Jnana Yoga only, but even Jnanis use bhakti in their process. See, this is the beauty of bhakti, that every other person also has to use bhakti for their progress. But bhakti is kind of superior to all. But these people use bhakti. So they are not a quote unquote technically bhakta here. Right? So though if you only look at this verse as a standalone verse, it looks like a verse that is talking about bhakti only, right? And rightly so, because it is bhakti. Because what is Krishna saying? Tani sarvani sanyamya. You withdraw all the senses. Yukta asita matparaha. You focus your senses on me, is it? Which means it has become bhakti. In fact, if you read Prabhupada's purport for this particular verse, text number 2.61, then you will understand very clearly that this is actually bhakti. But though it is bhakti, the section is talking about a jnani, okay, who is using bhakti in order to break the deadlock of his desires, right, which are kind of forcing him to enjoy objects. In order to escape from that, he is using bhakti. Krishna is so great that this person is a jnani only. He is quote unquote not a bhakta, but even to such a person, he is giving some amount of bhakti as a tool, in his path. Correct. So that is how we will see this. Right. So the Anyonya Ashraya gets resolved now. So till now there was this Anyonya Ashraya, right? There was that mutual dependence. On one hand, we had the senses. As long as you are not liberated, your senses are going to attract you here and there, and the mind cannot come under control, and it will get lost, so on. But now it is dead. That deadlock has been resolved. Okay. Now, in the next section, what Krishna says is, so somebody may say, some jnani may say, I'm not interested in meditating on Krishna. Nahi hoga mere se, I don't want to do this. So if somebody refuses 2.61, saying that I'm not interested in Krishna per se, I don't want to focus on Krishna, then Krishna says that it will become very difficult for such people. Okay, and that is what he's now going to speak in these famous verses, which we all know. Here, actually, I'll be speaking very, very briefly because the commentary is pretty same everywhere, so I'm not going to touch on this. Jayato Vishyan Pumsa Sangaste Shupajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodho Vijayate. So what is now Krishna doing? Krishna is not speaking about That Jnana Yogi who is not meditating on Krishna, he is chosen not to. So what will happen to him? For such a person who does not meditate on Krishna. So why is the background? Because 61 was just before, no? So after 61, 62. Whose mind is contemplating for sense objects, there arises attachment for sense objects. From that attachment arises intense desire to experience those sense objects. From this intense desire will arise anger. I mean, this is something that all of us can see, that if we don't, as long as we don't desire anything, it doesn't affect us. But once you start focusing on a sense object, you will see that it has that power, that is Maya Shakti. It has that power to pull us. Okay, and this is something that all of us experience also in our repeated failures to control our mind and senses. But here Krishna is anyway talking specifically about this Jnana Yogi who doesn't focus on Krishna. And of course, we can take it for us as well, because as devotees, even if we don't do that, we also land in the same trouble. Correct? So there's nothing more to speak in this verse. So it's a very, so this verse commentary is pretty same everywhere. Krodhat, next verse, Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smriti vibhrama, smriti brahmashat buddhinasha, buddhinashat manashati. From such anger arises loss of discrimination between what should be done and what should not, what is right and what is wrong. And from that loss of discrimination arises loss of memory of the goal of Atma Sakshatkar. So Smriti Brahmashat is talking about, you've forgotten the goal only. Atma Sakshatkar, your life goal, you've forgotten. The loss of such memory leads to destruction of the resolve to pursue the means to Atma Sakshatkar, Buddhi Nasha. Correct? And from such destruction of resolve, one gets ruined, Pranashyati. Right? He remains in samsara. He's gone. So beautiful analysis of what happens, one who cannot. Then somebody says, then what happens if somebody who follows 2.61? For that, there is 64 and 65, where Krishna is talking, okay, if you follow, then what you get, right? Raga dvesha vimuktaistu vishyan indriyescharan atmavashya videyatma prasadam adhigacchati. Disregarding the sense objects, using the senses that are devoid of likes and dislikes by my grace, received by meditating on me. So Krishna is talking now in 64 about those who follow 61 and are under his full control. One who has made his mind obedient to him attains the purity of a mind that is required for the next step of Atma Sakshatkar. So Krishna is making it so in this whole section, the 2.61 is a very, very pivotal verse. Everything is revolving around it. Correct? So that becomes a means for Jnana Yogi, and if he doesn't do that, something happens. And if he follows it, then he benefits. He goes ahead in life. And the same theme continues in the next 65th verse as well. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasyopajayate prasanna chetasya hyasho buddhi parivatishtate. Of this person, when purity of mind is attained, the destruction of all worldly sorrows happens. For such a person with pure, calm, blissful mind, knowledge of Jivatma very soon becomes firmly established. So such a person progresses. So you will see that jnanis also use meditating on the Lord as a tool for their advancement. Because if they don't do that, they will not progress much. They will need it, right? So bhakti is used by everyone. This is something that we always discuss. Okay. Then again, Krishna is once again saying, okay, when you cannot control your senses, what happens? Krishna is again going back. So please try to understand. In verse 61, Krishna spoke about the way proposed by him. 62, 63, one who doesn't follow that, what happens? 64, 65, one who follows, how he gets the Lord's mercy. 66, again the Lord is saying, one who doesn't follow doesn't get anything. Okay, so he's again going back to that previous thing. Nasti buddhira yuktasya nacha yuktasya bhavana nacha bhavayata shanti ashantasya kutasya kam. Of the one who has not used his mind for meditating on me, that is Krishna, the knowledge of Jivatma is not internalized. It doesn't get solid. When such knowledge of Jivatma is not internalized, the meditation on the Jivatma will not happen. He cannot meditate well. For one who is unable to meditate on the Jivatma, the cessation of desires for sense object will not happen. Shanti. His desire will not become Shanta. For such a person who has not attained the cessation of desires for sense objects, how can there be real happiness? Which is attained only by realizing Jivatma. Are you able to see? It's a beautiful way in which, that whole series of verses get connected. It's a classic explanation. Right? And then finally in 67, this whole series is concluding where Krishna is saying why he doesn't get anything. Indriyanam vicharatam yanmanon vidiyate tadasya harati prajnam vayurnavam imambasi. Krishna is saying the real issue is that the mind which gets employed by the person in going after the senses, which are freely experiencing sensual objects, such a mind will carry away elsewhere the person's knowledge away from the Jivatma, just like how the strong wind, which is blowing in the opposite direction, will turn away the boat on the ocean in a direction opposite to its intended course. It's a beautiful way in which that entire section is complete. Okay, so please, right, remember the whole the flow is just so beautiful. And then in 68, actually, Krishna concludes this section. Tasmad yasya mahabaho nigrihitani sarvasha indriyan indriyartebhyas tasya prajna pratishtita. Oh mighty Aunt Arjuna, therefore, one whose senses are completely withdrawn from the sense object, such a person's knowledge of the Jivatma becomes fixed, firmly rooted. Okay. So that whole thing is summarized. That Krishna is concluding that control senses and progress. Such a person achieves success in Jnana Yoga. So please understand the whole thing. Again, we'll recap quickly. 55 to 58, Krishna spoke about 4 levels of Jnana Yogis in descending order. Then 59 to 61, Krishna said how you can attain Jnana Yoga. And for that, the crucial verse was 61, focus on Krishna. 62, 63, what happens if you don't? 64, 65, what happens if you do? And 66, once again, Krishna is saying that one who doesn't follow doesn't get anything. And in 67, he's saying it is just because his mind carries him away. And in 68, he says the person who does it, he gets fixed in the Jivatma. In this way, very beautifully, Krishna has summarized the whole process of Jnana Yoga also. He has not only said the 4 types of Jnana Yogi, he has summarized how you can become such a Jnana Yogi. Now, in the final section of this chapter, which is the last theme of discussion, Krishna is now going to talk about the benefit that the Jnana Yogi gets. Benefit bhi hona chahiye na? One is he spoke about 4 states of Jnana Yoga. What are the benefits of that? And that is what Krishna is talking about in the... So this is again, the last part is connected to the 4 stages of Jnana Yoga. So we will again connect it. So we'll have to spend a little time on this and then we will end today's discussion. Look at 69th verse. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti sayyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato munehe. So Ramanujacharya says this verse, Krishna is talking about the greatness of 2.55. In 2.55, Krishna had said, right, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanyevatmana tushta sthita prajnasta dochate. Vashikara samya, about Prahlad Maharaj, about that example, about how the topmost Jnana Yogi, he is not even aware of what is happening around him. He's given up everything material and he's simply focused on Atma or Paramatma for a devotee. So that is the topmost Jnana Yogi which Krishna had spoken. So such a person's greatness is spoken here. What is the greatness of that 2.55? For such a person, the knowledge of Jivatma, which is like the night for all living beings who are after sensual pleasures, that same knowledge regarding Jivatma, Jnana Yogi who has controlled his senses remains awake because he experiences the Jivatma. In which knowledge about sensory pleasures, the living beings are fully awake because they are going behind sensory pleasures. That knowledge of sensory pleasures is like night, dark and irrelevant for a Jnana Yogi who can behold the Jivatma and is always contemplating on the Jivatma. So this whole verse which is there, Ramanujacharya says that this is talking about that Vishesha Jnana. That means this person he is not perceiving only. Night matlab usko samajh hi nahi raha hai ki like this also people can be. That means common people, what things they do, the 2.55, somebody like Prahlad Maharaj, if you ask him, he will say, aisa bhi kai kar sakta hai kya? How can a person be like this? He is completely oblivious to it. Okay, so that is how this verse is connected to 2.55 Bhagavad Gita, he says. Now the next verse, if you remember, 2.56, Dukkhe Shunud Vignamana Sukeshu Vikatas Prada. That means Sukha Dukkha are coming. He understands Sukha Dukkha is coming, but he is not affected by it. Anudvignamana, correct? About that Krishna is speaking in the next verse. And what is that verse? Apuryamana Machala Pratishtam Samudra Mapa Pravishanti Yatvat Tatvat Kamayam Pravishanti Sarve Sashanti Mapnoti Nakama Kam. See, look at this. Now how that connection is perfect, we will see. What is this verse talking about? This verse is talking about waters entering, the river entering the ocean. So the ocean understands river is coming into me, but still he is not affected. So similarly, this verse is talking about that second level of Jnana Yogi who understands that pleasure and pain are coming to me, but he is not affected. In the previous stage, he is not even aware. It is like night for him. Night मतलब क्या? उसको मालूम भी नहीं कि ऐसा हो रहा है. He is just, he is not conscious only about such problems. Correct. But now we are about the next level. Correct. So look at the translation. Just as the water from a river enters the ocean, which is naturally full by itself and remains fixed without increasing or decreasing in volume or getting disturbed, in the same manner, when all the sense objects go through or become known to a person who has fully restrained his senses and is focused on the Jivatma and remains undisturbed, such a person attains the peace of having obtained freedom from experiencing sensual pleasures. Those who are disturbed by the need to enjoy the sense object cannot attain this shanti. So please remember, clearly this verse, Ramanujacharya says, is talking about Ekendra Samnya. That means about this Dukkeshunu Vignamana person. Because in this stage, what is happening? He understands things are coming. Ocean is not controlling what is coming in, but ocean knows river is coming. But still, ocean is not increasing or decreasing in size. So similarly, this yogi is, Jnana yogi is fixed. We know Sukha Dukkha is like the river coming in. Though the rivers are coming in, he is not getting affected. So this is the 70th verse. Now in the next verse, he says this is about the final two stages. Okay, so we'll read this verse. Vihaya kaman yes sarvan puman chariti nispraha nirmamo nirahankara sashanti mati gacchati. Okay, so this is about which? This is about, so Ramanujacharya says this verse, 71st verse, is about both the levels. Abhi do level baki hai na, 57 and 58. In 57, Krishna had spoken about which Jnana Yogi? About that Jnana Yogi who doesn't enjoy too much or doesn't suffer too much. Na binandati nadvishti. And in 58, Krishna spoke about the Jnana Yogi who is like a tortoise, who consciously struggles hard and withdraws the senses. Okay, so Krishna is saying that this, Ramanujacharya says this verse is talking about those two people. Okay, so how we will see how. Let's see the translation. That person who, after giving up all sensory pleasures and lives without having any desire for such sense objects, without having any sense of ownership towards such sense objects, and not ahankar. Okay, such a person attains the peace of having obtained freedom from experiencing sensory pleasure. So please try to understand. This verse is talking about someone who is more consciously giving up, correct, these attachments. Vihaya kaman yes sarvan. Usko मालूम है कि ये problem है मेरे में, but he's working hard to give up these sensory pleasures. Kuman says nirmamo nirahankara. He's giving up sense of proprietorship. He's working hard here. This Jnana Yogi is working hard. The previous levels of Jnana Yogi, it was more seamless for them. That was obviously by lifetimes of practice they achieved that. But this level of Jnana Yogi has to work a little more hard to maintain his position. And that is what being said here. And the final verse is about the benefit for all these Jnana Yogis. Yesha Brahmi Stitik Partha Nainam Prapya Vimuchyati Stitvasyam Antakalebi Brahma Nirvana Mrichati. This is considered the benefit for the culmination of this Jnana Yoga. Okay. So those of us who remember reading Srila Prabhupada's translation here, he uses the term that such a person enters the spiritual kingdom. So that is used by Srila Prabhupada here for this translation. Ramanujacharya, he uses the translation Brahma Nirvana as saying such a person attains the Jivatma, who is pleasure personified. So somebody may say, why this difference is? The difference is obviously because Ramanujacharya is just confining his explanations to the section itself. And the section is about a Jnana Yogi. Okay, but you could look at this whole thing from a Bhakta perspective also, because it is all true for a Bhakta also. Okay, so the Bhakta also is going to get these benefits. So that is why Brahma Nirvana Mrichati can be spoken as spiritual abode. Okay, but as a section perspective, it is considered for a Jnana Yogi. So that is why such a translation here. So I'm just making this point clear so that we understand why the difference is there between different explanations. So like look at the translation. Oh Partha, this practice of karma without any attachments of worldly fruits. Please remember, this is about, because this whole chapter initially Nishkama Karma Yoga was spoken, right? Preceded by knowledge of the true nature of Atma. Because first part of the second chapter was about the knowledge of Atma. Second part of the second chapter was about Karma Yoga, this 2.47 and all that, right? Karma Nivadikaras Tema Falishkar. And third part is this Sthita Prajna. So the whole thing was that. Leads to the attainment of Jivatma through Jnana Yoga. Having attained this stage of performance of disinterested action. Disinterested action means this Nishkama Karma Yoga. That means you're doing an action without interest in the fruit. That is why he's calling it as disinterested action. This person will not get bewildered due to samsara by attaining this state. at least in the last phase of one's life, antakale api, one can attain the jivatma who is pleasure person. So Brahma Nirvanam Vichati. The Jnana Yogi attains the Atma. That means he becomes self-realized, so to speak, right? He attains self-realization. So this is how Krishna talks about the Sthita Prajna, right? So we are ending this, and before I go ahead, once more, we will just very quickly recap the entire topic for today, and then we will see. We'll take some questions. So we started by talking about the summary of the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita as given by Sripad Yamunacharya. Looking at that verse once again. नित्यात्म संग कर्मे गोचरा सांख्य योग दीहि द्वितीय स्थित धी लक्ष्य प्रोक्ता तन्मोह शांति. The knowledge of the Atma and of Karma Yoga, which has its objects, the eternal Atman and the performance of karma without attachment, and as a state of Sthita Prajna as the goal, is preached in the second Adhyaya to remove the confusion that Arjuna has. Okay, so very nice summary of Sripad Yamunacharya, where he's saying that the whole goal of the second chapter is Sankhya and Yoga. Okay. And leading to Sthita Prajna, which is there to remove the confusion that Arjuna has. Of course, we know that Arjuna again got confused, and because of which he opened the third chapter, and that part, of course, we have discussed in great detail. Correct? So we have seen all that. So I just wish to end by again reiterating the point that I mentioned in the beginning itself, that all the acharyas who, Sripad Ramanacharya, Ramanacharya, Madhvacharya, and Shankaracharya, they are considered as Matatrayacharya, who have three different opinions. But though they have three different opinions, all of them have commented on three important scriptures. One is the Bhagavad Gita, which is Smriti Prasthana, Shruti Prasthana, which is Vedanta Sutra, and also the Upanishadic Prasthana. They have commented on the Upanishads. So though they may have some differences, on many points they all agree. And this part of Bhagavad Gita that we saw today, this is one part where everybody has a similar explanation. Because this part is talking about a Jnana Yogi, because Krishna is also talking about Jnana Yogi. He's talking about somebody who can come to Atma level, that level of Atma realization, Atma Sakshatkar. Right? Any quick question, no comment before we end? Anybody with a raise of hand? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Okay, there's no question, we can stop. I just wait for. Okay, yeah, Saragrai Prabhu, and yeah. So, Saragrai Prabhu, please go ahead. I've allowed you to unmute. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes. Hare
Prabhu, it was very nice class. So much. It was so nice to hear the whole flow. So that was very nice. Prabhu, one question. Actually, two questions. One was related. You for the first level you mentioned about Prahlad Maharaj, right? Yeah. So, are there any other ones mentioned? And second thing, Prabhuji, in general, you took, you skipped the second chapter and then moved on, first started with the third and rest. So, was there any reason behind it? Maybe you had explained, but I didn't follow.
No. Somehow I was not prepared of the second chapter. At that time, I was studying the third chapter, so I started with that. But I will be covering parts of the second chapter that we missed out. So, but it's very beautiful. There are some parts of Ramanujara's commentary of Karma Yoga in second chapter which are too good. We will be doing that next time. I'm not going to leave that part, so we will do it. Anyway, as devotees, we can, like Prabhupada would say, you can enjoy from any part of the scripture, or it's like a sweet, you enjoy from anywhere, and it is very tasty. So, we will be doing that, and later we will do from 7th chapter onwards in sequence. Yeah, so coming to the first part, yes, 2.55. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parthamanogattan atmanevatmana tushtasita prajnisita samya, where the mind is focused so much that one is not even aware of materialistic things. Okay, so it is a fact that many Jnana yogis also attain such stages of samadhi, which we hear also many times. Okay, so generally Vaishnavacharyas have not quoted that because they like to quote devotees. And among devotees, the perfect bhakta is actually Prahlad, because in that childhood period of his, the bhakti that he shows, the focus that he shows on Supreme Lord Narayana, without being distracted by anything else in the world, very difficult to see that anywhere else, right? I mean, in action like that. So that's why Ramanujacharya gives only one example of Prahlad Maharaj. But since you asked, I was thinking about it. There are so many Jnana Yogis also you will see. Like, though we generally don't discuss so much about them because they don't belong to our sampradaya, etc., or because we're coming from a Vaishnava sampradaya. But if you actually read stories about the Santa Jnaneshwar and people like that, the kind of focus they had in their samadhi, etc. Though they weren't quote unquote Vaishnava per se, but certainly it illustrates the teachings of such verses only. Correct. Otherwise, they couldn't have been like that. Where just completely, not touched by anything. Not no material desire, not affected by anything on the mind, and just focused on Atma Tattva. So obviously, when Krishna is speaking like this, there are so many people would have been like that. But generally, we rely on acharyas to tell us some examples. But since you asked, based on my own understanding, I just spoke that yes, certainly we could have given. I mean, because this verse is actually talking about a Jnana Yogi. Jnana Yogis also would have depicted such stages where they are not aware of anything. And you will see that with so many other devotees as well, where they're just not affected at all by any suffering, or they're not even aware of what is happening, right? They're in a state of complete bliss and transcendence, which we see throughout, right? I mean, you may even see in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Haridas Thakur, you can see examples like that as well.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Haribon, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Who is okay? Yeah, Dinabandhu Chaitanya Prabhu, please go ahead. One second. I'll just ask you to mute. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Dandavad. Prabhu, this point about Apurya Manam Achala Pratishtam.
Yeah.
So I think Prabhupada translates as incessant flow of desires.
Yes.
Right. So I think Ramanujacharya's translation is Sukha and Dukkha.
Yes.
So what's the connection, or how are they actually related?
Yeah, I'll tell you. See, Ramanuja's translation is Sukha and Dukkha because Ramanujacharya is relating the last 4 verses of the second chapter. See, that Sthita Prajna, this whole section starts from 2.55. Na? So in the beginning, if you remember, I spoke about 4 stages of Jnana Yogi. 55 is the first stage, 56 is the second stage, 57 is the third stage, 58 is the fourth stage. Okay, the first stage, what happens in 55 is not even aware of anything. He's like Prahalad. 56, what happens? Dukkeshvanud Vignamanah. Dukkha Sukha, he knows that Dukkha and Sukha is coming, but he is not affected. Third stage is what? Yasarvatran Abhisnehas Tattat Prapya Shubhashubham Nabhinandati Nadveshti. Sukha Dukkha is coming, he knows also it is coming, and he's feeling happy and sad also. So you cannot even say that he's not affected, but he's not affected too much. So Krishna counts that also as a Jnana Yogi. And the final stage is that of the tortoise, that now so you know everything about Sukha Dukkha, you are completely, more external in your consciousness levels, but willfully you're controlling your senses like a tortoise. That is fourth stage of Jnana Yogi. That's how Ramanujacharya explains. And he connects that to the last 4 verses of the second chapter. So this Apurya Manam verse, what he says is, he says that Sukha Dukkha is like the river coming in. Okay. So if a huge body of water comes in somewhere, then if there is a small pond, that will get affected, right? That will overflow, that will become completely affected by the extra water that is coming in. But Ramanujacharya here he says that this Apurya Manam verse is talking about the Jnana Yogi, which Krishna had described in 2.56, who is such that he has so much yoga bala that he knows Sukha Dukkha is coming. Like the person can see the rivers are coming in. The ocean knows that river is coming in, but ocean is not affected. But it doesn't mean that the ocean is not aware that the rivers are coming. So that is why he uses the river in the Apurya Manam verse to indicate Sukha Dukkha, which is hitting the heart of the yogi. Okay, so the yogi's life also Sukha Dukkha is coming, and he realizes Sukha Dukkha is coming, but he says he is not affected by it. Matlab for him, it is just like, okay, it has happened, so what can be done? Like that. Makes sense, na? I don't know whether I lost him or I'm lost, but okay, so I guess okay, yeah. Nitin Sharma, bro, you had something? Sorry.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
No, 1 second, just 1 second. I'll just unmute our Dinabandhu Prabhu. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu. No, I just wanted to say, yeah, thank you. It was not allowing me to unmute.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. Yeah, Nitin Prabhu, go ahead.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, generally we say about the contemplation on the Paramatma aspect, but here the point was coming on contemplating on the Jivatma. So how to contemplate on Jivatma point? I am not
Yeah, very
understanding.
good, very good. See, the Jnana Yogi part, Jnana Yogi meditates on Jivatma only. Even the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is talking about that yoga, it is about Jivatma. And this is spoken in Patanjali Yoga Sutras also. Okay, Patanjali Yoga Sutras, when you study, he talks about meditating on the self. Now, as Vaishnavas, we are not interested in that because for us, we want to meditate on Krishna. Okay, because we have understood that it is superior, in terms of quality of pleasure to meditate on Krishna. Okay, and so we are not interested simply to meditate on oneself. We would rather meditate on Krishna, okay, which is considered higher. Even so that's why I did the 6th chapter. Correct. In the 6th chapter, if you remember, the last verse, what is Krishna saying? Among all yogis, one who meditates on me is the highest. Okay, so we know that. So as devotees, when we read these sections, what we should understand is the Bhagavad Gita is very, very accommodative. The Bhagavad Gita is actually accommodating all these people. It is accommodating impersonalists. It is accommodating Jnana Yogis. It is accommodating them. That's why Bhagavad Gita is a very universal scripture in India. You can see that all acharyas, all sampradayas, they will find shelter in Bhagavad Gita because there are so many verses in the Gita which are talking about what they are doing. Because Krishna in the Gita, he has like kept a buffet. He has kept so many things. And he has said, come on, you choose what you want to do something at least. Right? And Krishna's main focus is dharma, where the swadharma part of Arjuna, he wants him. But from the perspective of self-realization or yoga, Krishna has kept all options open. Right? Krishna has not said that, hey, this is very bad, don't do this. Krishna has condemned only demoniac qualities, but he has not condemned this type of meditation or something. He has said, obviously, this is superior. It is better to meditate on me. That's kind of higher in realization and pleasure and everything. But if somebody wants, he can do that. So meditating on the self means, so you have to study Patanjali Yoga Sutras for that. But even the 6th chapter, all these verses, these commentaries are there, where meditating on the self means just that. That means even if someone meditates on himself, and I'm not recommending that we do it because as devotees, we would rather meditate on Krishna's holy name while chanting. But if somebody wants to do, right, he has to sit in that whole 6th chapter method. Sit in that pose of Jnana Yoga, that sit properly in an asana and pull all his senses internally and focus his mind on the self, on the Atma, that I exist. Okay, I am existing in this body, different than this body and mind. I am sitting inside and just focusing on that. So this is possible. This is what Patanjali also says, and that is what is also being touched here. So
Okay,
as I said, we are not interested in it, but that method of self-realization is quote unquote bona fide. Are you getting the point?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So as devotees, we may not do it, but that doesn't mean that the method is wrong. Method is correct only. We are
Yes.
not interested in it because we would rather meditate on Krishna's holy name. Why should we sit and meditate on ourselves? Correct, like that.
Okay, Prabhuji. And Prabhuji, second point is that is there any authentic English book for that commentary of Ramanujacharya on Bhagavad Gita so that we can
No, they
read
don't.
it?
Actually, what they do, they believe, that's their lookout, but their stance is that these things are to be taught by teacher to student. So they read books on it. So I have been learning from one teacher. So, something like that.
Okay, we are also fortunate that we have got you and we are learning from you.
Yeah, so we also understand this, right? Even Prabhupada in first canto, one purport, he says that hearing is more important than reading. I don't know whether you remember reading that purport, but there is one purport in the first canto where Prabhupada writes this point, that hearing is more important than reading. Because in reading, what would happen is somebody tries to read the verses of the Gita or Bhagavad or any scripture, there is limited how much he can understand. But acharyas have given so much already. So, and that we have to hear. There has to be a discussion, right? Only then we get it. So that is how it is.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hari Bol. Yeah, last one. I think Saragra Prabhu again raised his hand, so I'll just unmute him. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Prabhuji, I'm like you just mentioned that, I mean, Krishna is giving a lot of options, but also in 2.61, I mean, like he is just, I think, giving only one option that I mean, like, you have to come to me to get out of this deadlock. So
Yeah.
how I mean, like, doesn't I mean, like, other people get confused with that? I mean,
No,
like, for
yeah,
devotees it's easy, but
yeah,
for
devotee
others,
is easy, but for others, yeah, good point you're making. See, the point is, all these other yogis also, they have to use bhakti as a tool for them. This is a fact actually. Bhakti cannot be ignored by anyone. That means the jnani also uses bhakti for his progress, which is a fact. They have to. Okay, and that is what Krishna is talking. So that 2.61 is not actually technically Bhakti Yoga. Okay, Bhakti Yoga is going to come in the 12th chapter. But Krishna is simply making the fact of matter clear that if you want to break a deadlock, then focusing on me is an easy option. So somebody may say, I don't want to focus on Krishna. I will fight against the deadlock and achieve. He may achieve. He may achieve also. And Krishna will not become angry and say, what nonsense. Without focusing on me, you achieved self-realization. I'm going to curse you now. No, he will not do that. But the fact of the matter is that, it becomes more easier when you get some higher taste from Krishna to control your senses. And Krishna has given that as a tool for the Jnana Yogi, which many Jnana Yogis may use. That's why we sometimes see that impersonalists also, they also connect to Bhakti, right? But their
yeah,
purpose is not Bhakti. That means if you ask the impersonalist, he will not say that I want to go to the spiritual world. No, he's not interested in all that. He wants his Brahman realization only. But he uses Bhakti as a tool for that, which Krishna has authenticated in 2.61. He has said you can use it. It's there for you also. I mean, we can really appreciate the magnanimity of Krishna, right? He is like, come on, even if you don't want to come to me, I will give you some component of mine as a help for you so that you can come. I mean, who will do this? I mean, any other god would have said that, Arey, you're not thinking about me, get lost, I will curse you more. So Krishna doesn't do anything this. He said, no problem. You don't want to come to me? No problem. You want to go to Brahman? Fine. But if you wish, you can just, meditate a little bit on me also so that it becomes easy for you in your sense control. So that's this section of Bhagavad Gita.
yes, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yes.
Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Gaur